Hey, and welcome, Miss Kira Speaks. Do me a huge favor and stick around till the end of the video. Help your girl get those numbers up. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and share with your friends because sharing is caring. And turn on those notifications because you just never know. Now, I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend as we head back into this work week. We are here for the other Black girl. This is the second half. We did episodes 1 to 5. So on here, I'm going to do 6 to 10. Now, if you remember in episode 5, which was the last of the first part, we ended off with Nella going to meet the mystery lady and being left hanging, so it looks, when somebody scoops her up in that van. So as we open up episode 6, Stalker Lady, as Malika calls her, did not show up as we know. Now, when Nella finally gets home, both Malika and Owen were worried sick. She tells them that she didn't show up. And now she said it was a karaoke bar that she was sitting in, but I did not get karaoke vibes from that place. Now that night we see Nella running her Googles looking for our good girl Eva, but we don't really see anything show up. So the next day she shows up to work and she's running some ideas past Richard. And he suggests Jesse Watson. Now, if we will remember, Jesse was that brother, okay? And Nella doesn't think that they're going to be able to make it happen with the recent Colin incident, but Richard pushes for it. Now, that should have given her pause. Now, Nella is supposed to be helping to choose the cover for Burning Heart with Diana and Hazel, but her mind is totally someplace else. Now, speaking of Hazel, she pops up at the school where Owen works. No, that's not weird at all. But she needs to ask for help with her charity. Oh, and Nella's been acting weird lately, and he also notices. Now, to me, he had a weird look on his face, but we never really get into it. He tells Nella later at home, and she seems annoyed, which we could totally understand. Now, Nella gets a random delivery, and it's an original manuscript of Burning Heart with notes. So we know where Nella's attention goes, but Malika is down to help Owen find out about Hazel's organization. Inspired by the manuscript, Nella suggests in a meeting with Diana that they use the original ending on this re-release. Now that's something that Diana's gonna think about. And later on, when Nella and Diana have a conversation, we find out the real reason why that book ending was changed in the first place. And that's Richard. Richard was the reason. You know, we have to appeal to a certain audience. So Nella suggests that they not take that route this go around. Did I mention that Nella gets a meeting with Jesse Watson? Now, she is floating on cloud 9 as far as work is concerned. Meanwhile, Malika and Owen pull up to Hazel's boyfriend's barbershop. Now, poor Owen gets his hair messed up when Malika is asking some not so subtle questions. I said, shoot, not him throwing them out without fixing Owen's hair. He got a big old in the back. Yikes. Now that floating on cloud 9 that I mentioned just a second ago goes right out the window when Nella actually sits down for that meeting with Jesse. He shoots down that Wagner offer of hers and tells her that she should have some more integrity. Now, Diana, when she was having that meeting with Nella about not compromising this time around, she seemed to be in the sisterhood. But when she goes to meet with Richard, she is singing a whole different tune. Malika and Owen, they give Nella a call to tell her what happened with Hazel's boyfriend, the barber. She's hiding something, Malika insists. She thinks she's a scammer and that Nella should expose her. In a very bold move, when Nella runs into Hazel, she asks her if she's ever gone by Eva. Was it a girl with a scar? You didn't tell her anything, did you? She looks shook as she's saying all this, and Hazel tells her it's Shawnee, her coworker from Boston. Now, Nella suggests that she goes to the police, but Hazel says no, and she scurries on out of there. At the end of the episode, Hazel gets home and she's looking scared as she locks the doors, and then she goes upstairs, not looking so scared anymore. She turns on the light in a room. You should have left me alone. And then the camera pans. It's Shawnee. She's chained up and calling for help. Now, before we get into episode 7, that is another deviation from the book. Shawnee was never tied up at Hazel's house. But let's see where they're going with this. As we start episode 7, the next morning, we see Hazel feeding Shawnee breakfast, still chained up as she gets ready for work. And I said, what the heck is going on? So when Nella gets to work, she goes to apologize to Hazel, but she just walks away because they got a meeting to get to. In the meeting, Nella suggests that they work with Young, Black, and Lit. That's Hazel's charity. And she looks a little surprised. So after the meeting, she thanks her, and Nella's trying to apologize. And Hazel says, how about we restart at my hair party? Now, you know, Malika is not about to let Nella go to Hazel's hair party by herself. When they get there, while Malika is getting her grub on, Hazel is introducing Nella to a small group of accomplished Black women with processed hair. She mentions somebody named Ruby, and before Malika can make a getaway, who walks in but Ruby, her ex? But Ruby is not the feisty Ruby that Malika remembered. Nella was about to go snooping when Hazel popped up on her. We hear Ruby talking, and she attributes her change to therapy. Well, that and Hazel. Everyone is so nice, Nella says, and Hazel wants to do Nella's hair. And I said, yep, that's a no for me. She massages Nella's scalp into a trance almost as we see memories from her childhood. And just as Hazel's about to put some mystery grease on Nella's scalp, Malika walks in and wants to know what's in it and why doesn't it have a label. Child, I heard that, and I know people do make their own homemade products, but you can, but we know on this show there's something to it. Like I said, Hazel says it's because she makes the stuff herself. Malika swoops Nella up to go to the bathroom and talk. Now, when she does this, why did the whole group get up? It was giving very cultish. In the bathroom, Malika is trying to talk sense to Nella. But Nella is so oblivious. She just feels so good being around this accomplished group of Black women. Malika trying to shake her out of it. She suggests that she goes off and does some snooping while she volunteers to do eyebrows. And while Nella is snooping, she finds a yellow envelope with pictures of the ladies before and afters. There's even one for her, but obviously there's no after. Two of the ladies get up to go look for Nella, and she hides. Once they're gone, she comes out and hides that envelope under her clothes. When she returns to the group, Nella says she has an emergency and they gotta go. But again, the ladies gang up on them at the door. Just one more surprise, and they head upstairs. No, it's not to see Shawnee. That would be too obvious. It's swag bags. Didn't see that coming. And who comes into the rescue? Owen. They make up a lie about the dog being sick when Owen and Nella do not have a dog. And they run on out of there. On the subway, Nella is showing them the contents of this yellow envelope. What does it all mean? Maybe Nella was wrong about Hazel. Back at Hazel's, we hear her say it wasn't a complete loss. Enter Shawnee with a processed hair and lattes. Now, this is where I had it in my notes. Now, in the book, there was a Shawnee, though she was not chained up at Hazel's place, and she didn't end up having processed hair. At the beginning of episode 8, we see Nella laying in bed reflecting on it all. She gets up and she empties out the contents of that folder, and she's going over everything. So she decides to make herself a crime wall. The next day, Owen has called in reinforcements, and Malika is there, and they're trying to figure it all out. Voluntary? Involuntary? What does it all mean? Everyone's IG only goes back 1 year. They decide to reverse stalk Shawnee, and they're trying to figure out Hazel's connection to the other ladies. Lo and behold, it looks like it's Richard. Malika has that "I told you so" for Nella, but Nella is so upset that all her hard work to diversify Wagner is just so Richard could present a more docile black woman. And we saw that when Richard was having a meeting with the reporter, he got up to seek Nella out, thinking she got that grease already, but she didn't, and she hadn't showed up for work that day. Jesse tried to warn her, and now Nella wants to take Wagner down. While the group is plotting and planning, there's a knock at the door. It's Hazel with some chicken noodle soup. Owen says she's contagious, and he tries to shoo her away. Finally, he agrees to take the soup, and he's like, no, we're gonna squeeze it through this little crack in the door. Hazel is real pressed to have Nella show up for that imprint launch. Nella goes and she meets up with Jesse to tell him about Richard and the Stepford wives. He says he believes her and he will use his platform to help her. But while they're having this meeting, Shawnee is lurking. We see Nella getting ready for this launch, and Malika wants to go with her, but Nella insists that she doesn't need her there. Vera calls her to congratulate her and apologize. It was quite weird. And Malika is listening because we're suspicious. Vera is telling her, don't give up all of you for work. And I said, child, amen to that. They can't figure out exactly how Richard is doing it or why Nella is going to this party. She says she wants to warn Diana. I said to myself, wrong road. All signs point to her being involved. Now, Malika decides to go pay Vera a visit, and Nella runs up on Diana in the restroom, and she warns her of Hazel and Richard and what they're doing. She's in danger, and she believes that Diana is too. Diana says she believes her. She knew something wasn't right. Child, not from the lady that said Nella needed polish, but Diana says, not tonight. While Malika is busy trying to get the dirt on Richard, he is at this launch unveiling his imprint for Burning Heart and revealing the author for his new diverse branch of Wagner, Ascendant. And that author is none other than Jesse Watson? Nella looks puzzled as he walked out, and child, if I hadn't read the book, I would be too. It ain't looking so good for the girl. Jesse says that Wagner aligns with his views. Since when? Afterwards, Nella confronts Jesse, and he says after their conversation, he thought about it, woke up, got a haircut. He tells her, you have Richard all wrong. When Jesse walks away, up walks Hazel. And Nella's not trying to hear anything she has to say, and she's calling her Richard's puppet. You were so close to figuring it out. Oh, you thought Richard was in charge? I said, ooh, girl. Richard calls the two ladies up to the stage. Meanwhile, Vera is revealing that Richard has been cheating with his wife for over 40 years with Diana. And at that moment, Nella realizes it was Diana all along. After the speech by Hazel, Nella goes off, calls Hazel a lunatic and Jesse a robot. What did you do to Kendra Ray? Then Nella starts to realize that she's looking like the crazy one. Malika leaves Vera and she leaves Nella a message about Diana. When she calls Owen, she gets hit by a car. It was Shani. And then Nella is snatched up into a van as the episode ends. Now in episode 9, we are going to get character development and learn all about our good girl Hazel. We are at Cooper's Review in 2019 and we see Chantel Wilson is the name that we hear. But then when we see the face, I said, wait a minute, that's Hazel. She's looking for an editorial assistant position, but she doesn't have a degree. She is a living caretaker for her mom with a job and no time for college. They suggest she applies for an unpaid internship. She goes home to talk it over with her mother, who does not want to be taken care of by a stranger anyway. And the next thing we see Chantel/Hazel at Harvard, where Diana Gordon is speaking. She has a ton of questions, but on her first one, the audience is talking under their breath and they're kind of making fun of Hazel. But when she elaborates, baby, silence. Diana asks her what program she's in, and when she says so, one of the girls calls her out for not being a student. She cusses her out just a little bit and then goes and hides in the library. Diana finds her there and she apologizes and tells her she doesn't go to school there. She just really wanted to see her. And then she tells her about her home life and Diana invites her to dinner. When we get to this fancy dinner, we are with influential Black women yet again. And they start to shower her with compliments, and it got a little weird if you ask me. But when Diana walks in, baby, you can hear a pin drop. She thanks them for being there and welcomes Chantel into the fold. So eventually she starts asking these women what they want. And as they specify, she drops a little something into their cup and massages their temples. And I was like, okay, again, is giving cult. And Hazel/Chantel is reluctant at first. And she starts to kind of go off on a tirade about wanting to feel worthy and accepted and free. I believe in you, Diana says, which is what she was saying to all the ladies when she was rubbing those temples. And we see exactly what Diana is rubbing. Fast forward to Boston in 2021, we see Chantel and she's frantically scratching her head when Diana comes in. She's the new conditioner, as she calls them. Have you had any side effects from the grease? She's scratching and she says, she's got scratching and her hair's on fire. And she had to look up what BLM meant. Why are we doing this? Chantel asked. Now, Diana talks about spreading wealth, but clearly that's not the full picture. She hands her an envelope with the name Eva on it before she heads out. We see Eva, and she has quite the impressive resume, and she lands the job. She has no clue what she's doing, and her coworker, Shani, has to help her. Now I said, isn't this the same office that she walked into 2 years prior with a different name, hair, and resume, and they didn't catch on? Eva and Shani go out to eat and they exchange notes about the company, much like we saw Hazel do with Nella. Shani wants to know how she's surviving and everything just seems to roll off her back. Eva pulls out that little jar of grease. She calls it CBD for the soul. And Shani, she passes. I don't blame her. She tells her she deserves to not feel like she has to fix it all and have all the answers. The problems of the world are not hers, but Shani says that's just not how the world works. And she is enough. Now Eva, she insists, but Shani, she walks out. Eva gets home and she panics and she calls Diana. And Eva, she's asking Eva about What about the emergency protocol? But she says that she taped everything she said, and Diana tells her she'll handle it. When Shani gets into work the next day, security is going through her things, and the boss calls her into her office. Next thing, we see Shani on the sidewalk with a box, telling someone that there was money in her account that morning. Now apparently she's missed her rent payment and has nowhere to live. Just then somebody walks up and her head into the wall, and it's a tussle, but Shani manages to get away and run off. Eva isn't happy about the way things have turned out, and Diana says that it is all her fault and that her new assignment is in Syracuse. She doesn't want to move or change her name. This causes an argument between these two. I said, because we see Chantel is back home with her mama. At first I was like, wait, is it a dream? I mean, she got her old regular hair back and everything. And she's arguing with her mom about choices. Mom says she doesn't recognize her anymore. And what does she do? She goes crawling back to Diana. Diana needs to know that she can handle it, that she's committed. And we see Eva with a bunch of different women about to ruin their life. Diana says it's all for an old friend, and that when Eva's done, she gets to keep her new life. That last stop was Wagner, and her name is Hazel. Richard asks her if she's going to be able to help without any of the issues that Boston has. And she says, of course. Tell me everything I need to know about Nella Rogers. Episode 10 gets a little sticky, baby. Because we had a whole episode 9 that was devoted to Hazel, and we done forgot what happened to poor Nella, who got snatched up at the end of episode 8. So we finally see what happened to her. She is tied to a chair in some seedy location, and there's Hazel and Shani, and Hazel's telling her just to take the grease. Nella is confusion, and in comes Diana. You still haven't figured it out? I thought you was smarter than that, Nella. What do you want, Nella? Because you know that's Diana's line. And then they say, I want world peace. I want to be the president of the university. And she's like, little fairy and massage the temples. Nella says to get the F out of here. And Diana's like, that's not an option. Nella told Diana once before that she wanted to be an editor to tell stories about Black people that'll make the little girl inside her feel less alone. Diana says she can make that happen. When Ascendant announces Jesse Watson's book, they're going to change the world. Nella wants to know how he produced a book that quick. Well, his name is on it, but this book has been in the work for years by Diana and some other great minds of the sisterhood. They needed a spokesperson, and Nella gave them that with Jesse. Someone who fought the system for years admitted that he was wrong and telling people to join him. Nella doesn't want it at that cost, and Diana says that compromise is weighing her down. Nella gives Diana an FU just as they're about to hold Nella down against her will and get that grease to go. And we hear a zap of a taser. It is Kendra Ray Phillips to the rescue. We flash back to 1988, and it's the Chelsea show, and we see Diana Gordon and Kendra Ray Phillips are guests. Diana is taking control of the interview while Kendra sits quietly with an occasional laugh. Kendra says they worked really hard, and the book is something she really cared about, and that's why she's there. Diana says, it's not perfect, but what is? And baby, why she say that? Kendra says she has regrets and that she'd rather have made nothing than watch her lie to herself. Diana says, but her ending would have gotten them nowhere. Kendra didn't want her to do whatever dance white people told her to. I said, oh, not on the television. She said she'd rather not work the rest of her life than be Richard Wagner's who I said, yikes, girl. And off the stage she goes. Back to the present day, and Kendra tells Nella she was at the peak of her career and she took everything from her. Shawnee found her and told her that Diana was after Nella. After you fought for my ending, I knew I had to save you. Kendra has been on the run. Richard and Diana tried to force her to sell her soul. The system will make you always give up a part of yourself to succeed. Don't you want to stay true to yourself? Nella agrees that that's what she wants and to be free. Kendra says, text your friends goodbye and give me your phone so I can run it over. But Nella wants to stop Jesse's book and go see her friends. So Kendra takes Nella to the hospital to see Malika. This happened because of me, she says, and it'll keep happening until we're in Idaho. Owen was like, Idaho? And Nella wants to talk to Malika alone. Meanwhile, Diana and Richard are grilling Hazel about Nella's whereabouts. Richard says, we don't need Nella anymore. But Diana doesn't want her to derail everything. We'll just do what we did to Shawnee. No, Hazel says. She'll come around. I can fix it. Diana says Nella needs to be greased by the end of the day or Hazel is no longer part of the operation. Hazel says she won't let her down. After she walks out, Richard says that he'll protect Diana from Kendra Ray. But Diana needs a minute. Malika says to Nella, no, you can't run away. You can't just give up. Malika says Kendra was just a person and she abandoned everyone. She knew what Diana was doing and she ran away and stayed gone for 35 years. She says, you know their plan. Things are different for you. You need to stop that Jesse book from ever getting published. But Nella, she just wants Malika safe. Malika says, think about the girls that are coming up after you. Do what you want after, but you have to stop that book. So, of course, Nella says she's right. Malika is out and she, along with Nella and Owen, are trying to figure out how to stop Jesse's book. Then they hear a knock at the door and it's Vera. Nella lets her in. She has wine and garlic knots. That's just an odd combination. When she sees a hurt Malika and Owen, she says this may not be the best time. Wait, if you want to stop a book from being published, how would you go about that? Sensitivity reading? And Nella says, brilliant, we'll get him canceled. Nella says, let's leak the book before Richard and Diana get to do a PR spin on it. Without his endorsement, his followers will completely alienate him. They'll think he's a sellout and boycott the book. I'll tank their plan. But how will we get the book to leak it? Nella calls Sophia for her ID to get into Wagner, and now she is in Richard's office trying to figure out his password. I said, I don't know. We didn't think this one through. But somehow she gets in and she finds it. Radical power. While Nella is at Wagner, we get a flashback to Diana going to see Kendra after the Chelsea show. She says she always felt things so much, and that means pain, but it doesn't have to be her future. She just needs a new attitude. Now, where have we kind of heard that one before? Let me do your hair like we used to. Diana says, I'd do anything for you, and you do anything for me, right? Of course. And she puts that special grease on her scalp. She tells her, Richard isn't going to fire you. He's going to drop the Chelsea interview. I said, how, Sway? He'll leave her alone. She can have her career. And as she's talking, Kendra is completely in a fog, and we see all different thoughts going through her head. She says, "That's great." And Diana continued. Now, as Nella is going to leave, it looks like there's somebody walking around in the hallway. There's a noise, and then she screams. Kendra Ray's photo is on the ground. When she picks it up, she cuts her hand. So she goes in the bathroom to wash her hands off, and who comes in after her but Hazel? Nella is on guard, as she should be. I said, don't trust her, girl. Hazel wants her to have everything. It just comes with the compromise. Nella says, this is some get out She wants her to see the bigger picture. She's her friend. Diana gave her a way out. She came from nothing. This is a better life. A real life where they could be friends and work on projects that they care about. All it costs is your soul. Nella says, you think white people are out here getting distracted by how furious they are? Don't you want to free your mind? Nella, she just can't let Jesse's book get out of there. But Hazel says, so you just gonna blow up your life and get nothing like Kendra Ray? I mean, that's the plan, kinda. Forget about what you think the world is supposed to look like and think about what you want. Everyone makes sacrifices to get ahead. You got your foot in the door at that white school and you walk around kissing Richard and Diana's butt. Diana made compromises too. And you love burning heart. Kendra Ray stood her ground for what? Compromising doesn't have to mean giving up your goals. You just have to play the game. It's the only way we can win at a system that's stacked against us. This just makes it so. It doesn't have to hurt so much. Child, this book and this series got into so many little intricacies in the workplace of obviously the token and the other black girl at the system. I mean, let's wrap it up, child. Let's wrap it up. What will I become? Nella is asking. A person with the easier life. Just give yourself permission. So Hazel sits that little grease on the counter and she walks out the door, and we see Nella and she looks at the jar and she looks at herself in the mirror, and we are wondering, what decision is Nella gonna make, girl? Are you gonna black fist? Are you gonna woo? We see a younger Kendra packing while Diana's writing that letter we saw. Kendra, that head is hurting, baby, and she is trying to blow this pop stand and get out of town. We have a side by side of Diana back then and Hazel now applying that magic grease. As the elevator opens at Wagner, somebody walks out, but we don't see who it is. Just people looking, but we can guess. Richard is having a meeting for Jesse's book when in walks Nella with a weave, a wig, or something, baby. That hair is processed, okay? And she don't got her little earthy attire on. She's like, she got a new attitude. Hazel and Diana, they look pleased. Jesse asks, what is she doing here? You didn't think you were going to change the world without me. Richard and Diana ask her to come back to make sure she gets this book into as many hands as possible. It's a message that she truly believes in, and it's going to make some serious bank. A toast to Jesse and Nella Rogers, their newest senior editor. Child, I was a little nervous. I said, this is where we're going to end. So Diana tells her she looks great and she loves what she's done with her hair. I bet you do, girl. Looks like you've been using a new product. Every day, Nella says. You were so right. Gives me so much control. We lost you for a minute. I'm happy you're back. Vera's office is now Nella's. Diana says everything will start to fall in place now. So as Diana walks away, here comes Hazel. She is so giddy. Nella's looking into her new office. It is so good that you're here. I'm really glad we could be friends. Me too, Nella girl. Co-signs. Doesn't it feel good to finally be on the same team, Hazel asked. Totally, same team. Looks like you finally got everything you wanted. I told you no one was getting in our way. Now this is crazy, but Hazel talking. And now she feels like she can just tell her everything. She closes the door and she apologizes. She's just really excited. How about we grab some lunch? Nella is booked and busy, child. How about another day? Now Hazel, she walks out looking a little disappointed with one final congratulations. We see Jesse get in a car and somebody tases him from the back seat. Child, it is Malika. This is fun, she says. Kendra is the driver, child. She says, please don't talk. Please don't talk. Nella sits in her chair in her office and she pulls out a flip phone. I said, okay. And she says, I'm in. Let's burn it down. I said, oh, okay. And that is where we end, child. Now, there were some differences between the series and the novel, and I brought those up. Now, the Belle Perspective is also doing a live about these differences. So tune in because I'm going to join her. What did you guys think about the series? And have you read the book? Get down in the comments and let me know, or just let me know that you stopped by. Hey, editing Kira here. Now, firstly, my apologies for that extremely thorough recap of episode 10. Yikes. And I tried to scale it down, but to no avail. I just wanted to mention this before I get on the live with the Belle Perspective about the ending of the series. The ending of the series and the ending of the book, two different things. And at first I questioned to myself whether that's what they were trying to give in the book. But no, at the end of the book, Nella was greased and she became a conditioner. Now, the series, they changed the ending, which made me think of Burning Heart and changing the ending of the book, which also wasn't in the book. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks. Thank you for taking this journey with me of the other Black girls. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.